Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The issue of music in Islam is something that traditionally there hasn't been a lot of debate over because of the vast majority of scholars that have come together to say it's haram. Recently, this debate has really kicked off online, and we see our brother Nouman Ali Khan that he spoke about this issue. Now, before you guys all start getting in a big, hoo-ha about why are you talking about it online and why don't you speak to him on private, I did. Me and our brother Eddie from the Deen Show, when this issue was brought to us, we reached out to Nouman Ali Khan, and in a way to do it with nasiha, privately, we set up a WhatsApp group. As you can see the picture on your screen, this is June 20th, 2023. So that means more than a year and a half ago. And we invited him and he joined the group, and he said he wanted to bring some experts. So he brought two more people in who I don't know personally. One he said was a faqih, and one he said was a hadith scholar, to review the evidences. And all the evidences that I'm going to present to you, I presented to them in the group. The response was not academic. He decided to leave the group and say, you know what, I'm going to stick to my opinion. No response. So I gave him a year, and our brother Eddie from the Deen Show is a witness to this, that look, review the evidences. If you have evidences, show them to us and I'll change my view. But if you don't, then don't go around making videos and posting about why music's halal without understanding the issue from an academic perspective, and bring any experts you like. All of them left the group with no responses. So I waited a year. It's been a year and a half now. So now we're going to address the issue. Our brother Nouman Ali Khan, he said,
I needed to understand the prohibition of music. I really wanted to grasp it. And there are several ahadith that talk about this issue. And the problem with me is I recognize the limit of my area of expertise. I am not a specialist in hadith by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a student of hadith for my own benefit, but I don't talk about it public. I don't lecture on it because that's not my area of expertise or my area of research.
no, it's very important. You heard what he said. Again, I appreciate the fact that he recognizes his field of expertise, but then he goes on to do exactly what he said he doesn't do, which is talk about hadith, criticize hadith, which are in Bukhari. And again, so why would you do that if that's not your field of expertise? And to say that I spoke to a hadith scholar, but I can't mention his name and he won't say it publicly, and this is just not valid. This is not the way Islamic academics work. He continues.
My area of research is Quran. So my first question was, where is music talked about in Quran? Nowhere. It's not there. The one place where you can argue it might be there is Surah Luqman. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Surah Luqman, among the people is someone who purchases vain speech to misguide others from the path of Allah. And the vain speech, lahwa al-hadith, the opinion, the famous opinion regarding it from Ibn Abbas is this is referring to music. So then the ayah would mean among the people is someone who purchases music. So now all of a sudden, this became a Quran studies issue, right? But Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu has an opinion, and there are several other Sahaba who have several other opinions. And fun enough, the opinion of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu that's recorded in Ibn Kathir is not authentic. It's not authentic. The chain includes someone who's considered a drunkard.
Now here's the problem. You see, in the beginning, he clearly said that hadith is not his field, and he doesn't talk about hadith, and he doesn't criticize hadith. And then he goes on to do exactly that. And to say the chain has a drunkard is a very harsh criticism of a hadith that is no doubt authentic. And I will prove it, inshallah, in this video, with scans of each book, evidences, chains, and all of that. You can't say, I don't know about hadith, and then criticize hadith and call narrators drunks without even mentioning who they are. Which narrator? I asked him this on the group. Which narrators are drunk? I'm going to show you the chain and go through each narrator and show me where is the drunk. Okay? And it's not just one chain. And it's not just Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma who said that Lahu al-Hadith in Surah Luqman includes music. And if other Sahaba mention other things that would also be included in useless or vain talks, doesn't mean that music is not included. It's not a contradiction here. Now, Let's take this from the top. Let's take this from the Quran itself. In the tafsir of Ibn Abi Hatim, which is one of the earliest tafasir, he mentions the riwayah from Abdullah ibn Abbas, and it's on your screen. Now, notice that the students of Abdullah ibn Abbas have also narrated the same thing on their own, Qatada and Mujahid and Abdullah ibn Abbas, and you'll notice on the bottom that these are authentic. These have been checked as sahih chains that mention from Abdullah ibn Abbas, from Qatada, from Mujahid, saying the Lahu al-Hadith in Surah Luqman is a reference to music. So in the Quran, it does mention this. Now, what I want to show you here, this is Mawsu'at Tafsir al-Mathur, which is a collection of all of the narrations from the Prophet ﷺ and Sahaba and Tabi'un and later scholars about the meaning of the Quran with chains and narrations checking. In it, not only through a single chain, now please look at this, from 6 independent chains from Sa'id ibn Jubair and other Abu Salih and other students, Atiyah and Mujahid and Dahak and other scholars who took this knowledge from Abdullah ibn Abbas, all of them with their own independent chains, they mention Abdullah ibn Abbas held this opinion. That means it's not like a single chain. These are 6 different chains, authentic, right there on your screen. Now, look at the next page that we have here. Again, from Abdullah ibn Abbas, and he mentioned this authentically, from Hasan al-Basri, from Ata, other ulama from the Tabi'un, they all took this to mean that this is a reference to music. It's not just Abdullah ibn Abbas, who, by the way, was from the greatest scholars of hadith, greatest scholars of tafsir, the one that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, may Allah give him the understanding of wahi. So when Abdullah ibn Abbas has an opinion in tafsir, authentically established, we definitely take this. But the other Sahabi that I'm going to mention here, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, from the great scholars of Sahaba, from the one that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, take Quran from him. So again, now you look at the caliber of Sahaba we're talking about. Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, here the narration from him, and Ikramah and Sa'id ibn Jubair, they're all mentioned here. Now, and I'm going to discuss the narration from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in detail. I'm going to go through the whole sanad, but I want to show you the other narrations as well. Mujahid, again, not through a single chain, but through 5 different chains here. Dahak and others, they have all said that this is a reference to music in the Quran. Now, let's take Ubayd ibn Umair, Hasan al-Basri, Sa'id ibn Jubair, Ata, all of them, same opinion. So, don't just say it's like one narration from Abdullah ibn Abbas and others give different opinions. No. There are tons of narrations from different Sahaba and different Tabi'un that all said that this means music. Now, when we look at a chain, we don't just say, I heard from somebody who won't mention their name and I can't mention them and they won't talk about... No. We're going to give evidences. This is from the Sunan al-Kabir of al-Bayhaqi. And this has the narration from Abdullah ibn Abbas that you said. Now, this is reported from Abdullah ibn Muhammad, who's famously known as Ibn Abi Dunya, from Zuhair ibn Harb, who was a great scholar and faqih and thiqa, from Jarir ibn Hazim, which is another strong, salih narrator, as Al-Dhahabi has said, from Ata ibn Sa'ib, the great tabi'in scholar, from Sa'id ibn Jubair, one of the fuqaha of Medina, from Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiyallahu anhuma, that says that this ayah with lahu al-hadith is reference to music. Now, where's the drunk? Where's the drunk? How dare you say something about a chain like this? Prove it. And this is why I gave you a year and a half to go research it, to discuss it offline, so I don't have to do this in public. But because you didn't respond, and our brother Eddie from the Deen shows is a witness to this, we have to do this in public. Where's the drunk? Now, continuing on, next page. This is the hadith from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. It's also mentioned with the same meaning that this ayah in the Quran shows that music is haram. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, Wallahi al-ghina. He says, I swear by Allah that this is a reference to ghina. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the great Sahabi, the Faqih, the Mufassir, the Muhaddith, the one that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, take Quran from him, take the understanding of the Quran. What did he say? He says, this ayah shows that music is haram, and he took qasam by it. And as you can see, this is sahih, it was authentic by Ibn Abi Dunya, and by Ibn Jareen in his tafsir, and others, and we'll talk about Al-Baghawi and others. So now, when we look at the authenticity of ahadith, one of the greatest scholars in this field from the past, I'm not even getting to contemporary scholars, is Ibn Hajar Asqalani. The famous Ibn Hajar Asqalani has a famous takhrij book, a checking of hadith, talkhis, and here he says about the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, where Abdullah ibn Mas'ud takes qasam, he says, Wallah, this is ghina. He says, Bi-isnad al-sahih, it is authentic. Ibn Abi Shaybah had reported it authentically. And then he says about this that Al-Hakim and Al-Bayhaqi all considered it to be sahih, as Ibn Hajar Asqalani does himself. In the Mustadrak of Al-Hakim, I've given out here the entire chain again. Now, I'm going to go through the entire chain again with you, okay? So know, is there any weak narrator in this hadith, any drunk in this, okay? Now, if this is reported from Abu al-Abbas, Muhammad ibn Yaqub, who is he? As I've listed out, handwritten my notes from checking each narrator here. He is an Imam, a Muhaddith, the Musnad of his Asr, the one that the people would take chain from, Al-Hafiz, memorizer of hadith, Faqih, a Shafi'i, scholar, no doubt to his authenticity, right? Who does he report it from? From Bakkar ibn Qutayba al-Qadi, who was a famous scholar and judge, Qadi al-Kabir, Allama, Muhaddith, a Hanafi faqih of the Hanafi madhab. Who does he report it from? Safwan ibn Isa al-Qadi, again, a great scholar, somebody who was a judge, and Abu Hatim said about him that he's salih. Muhammad ibn Sa'ad said that he's thiqa and salih, that he is a strong narrator and a qadi, an Islamic judge. Who did they report it from? Humayd, Kharrat, and that is one of the great scholars of hadith as well. Ibn Abi Hatim said that Yahya bin Ma'in said about him that he is thiqa, that he is strong in hadith, and laysa bihi bas, there is no criticism of him. Now, if we continue, he's from Ammar, from Sa'id ibn Jubair, onwards, all reliable scholars of hadith, all the way to the Tabi'un, from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who said that this ayah, wallahi, is referencing to music, and Al-Hakim also said that it's authentic, and Al-Dhahabi agreed with him. So, where's the drunk? Right? No doubt, not just through Abdullah ibn Abbas, but Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and other Sahaba and a great number of Tabi'un authentically said that this ayah includes the tahrim, the haram of music. It is in the Quran. Now, are there hadith? Our brother Nouman Ali Khan said,
okay, there are these ahadith. Then I go to Dr. Akram Nadwi. Tell me about these ahadith. None of them reach the degree of sahih.
Now, again, when you're talking about hadith now, when you just said you're not going to talk about hadith and this is not your field, again, that's disturbing. This hadith that you're referencing is in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari. Some of the ulama said it's mu'allaqan, that it's not a part of the Sahih itself, as mu'allaq is usually a hadith that Imam Bukhari uses in his chapter titles without the chain. But if you look at the hadith here, it actually has the entire chain. Even Imam Bukhari says qala here, referencing the beginning of the sanad, it does not mean that it's mu'allaq in the sense that he doesn't include it as a part of his Sahih. So this hadith that you're talking about is in Sahih al-Bukhari. That should be enough for us to say, okay, especially if you're not an expert in the field of hadith, you shouldn't be saying that it doesn't reach the level of being authentic. But just for fun, let's take this hadith apart. The greatest or the best known and the most popular explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari is a book called Fath al-Bari by Ibn Hajar Asqalani, the great Shafi'i scholar and hadith scholar. What does he do? He checks this chain to particularly clarify that this is not mu'allaq in the sense of not having the sanad, and even with its narrators that are there, he says that this hadith is hadith sahihan, it is authentic ala shart al-Bukhari, upon the conditions of al-Bukhari. It meets the level of criteria of Imam Bukhari. And he says that again, and I've highlighted it twice on the page there. So what does it mean? No doubt, this hadith is sahih according to the conditions of Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih, as Ibn Hajar Asqalani has mentioned. Now, let's take some contemporary scholars. We've been taking the classic scholars. One of the best known scholars of hadith in our time, who has done an amazing work of rechecking and going over ahadith from the past, looking the opinions of different scholars, is Shaykh Albani. Well known, needs no introduction. In his Mawsu', collecting the hadith that he graded to be sahih, the hadith, this hadith is there. Obviously, it's in Bukhari. But he discusses it and he says this hadith is sahih. So Shaykh Albani thought it to be sahih. One of the greatest fuqaha of our time, scholars of fiqh and usul, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymin, in his book Sharh al-Mumti', as you have it scanned on your screen, what does he say? Al-hadith la shak fi sihhatihi. It is a hadith that there is no doubt to its authenticity. So Ibn Hajar Asqalani, Al-Hakim, Bayhaqi, later scholars like Shaykh Albani, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin, all agreed that this hadith in Bukhari is sahih. And now you're coming out and saying that they don't reach the level of sahih?
Even if you're convinced it's haram, is there enough scholarship? And when I spoke to the Hanafi ulama, they're like, we have no issue with it. We have no issue with it. I went to traditional South Asian Hanafi ulama in private gatherings, no issues. They won't say it in public. Privately, they said no issues.
Now, this is really disturbing. First thing, you won't mention who these ulama are. Secondly, you will say that these ulama themselves will not say this in public. So why are you mentioning this in public? If this is something private between you and them, then keep it private. And if they're ashamed to say this publicly, then there's something wrong. And just to say I've met Hanafi ulama or Shafi'i ulama or Maliki ulama doesn't tell us anything. The madhab is not just a particular scholar's opinion. Regarding this issue, there are ulama who have written entire works to say there is ijma', there is consensus that music is haram. Now, you could argue that point, that there is an ijma' and so on, but that's not even what I'm discussing here. When you talk about the madhahib, you have to reference the books of that madhab and the mu'tamad, the relied upon books of the madhab. Now, if you're going to say the Hanafi madhab and Shafi'i and Maliki and so on allow music, they don't say this is haram, then give us a reference from a book or name a scholar. You can't just say I met somebody somewhere and they won't even mention who they are and they won't mention it publicly and then quote it. Here, I'm going to show you. This is from Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the great Khalifa, the pious man who led the Ummah without a doubt. In his time, when some of the people started to allow music, what did he say? He said, you're openly allowing musical instruments and wind instruments is an innovation in Islam. He said, this is something that was never done before. And he criticized the people and condemned them for such a thing. From that early on, the Hanafi scholar Abu Layth as-Samarqandi, in more than one place, he says that the proofs, and I've scanned them, they're on your screen right there, the proofs of prohibition music, listening to singing, dancing, and all of that is from the kitab, from the Quran and the Sunnah, wal ijma' al-ummah. What does the great Hanafi scholars here say? That according to the consensus of the Muslim Ummah, this is haram. The great Maliki scholar Ibn Abdul Barr, in his Ilm wa Fadlihi, he mentioned that the study of music, entertainment is rejected and discarded according to all of the adherents of all of the divine religions based upon knowledge and faith. Not only of this Ummah, Al-Adyan, all of the different faiths, if you go to the true followers of those faiths, according to Ibn Abdul Barr al-Maliki, he says this is something that has been forbidden. Now, we'll continue. The great Shafi'i scholar Al-Baghawi, in his Sharh al-Sunnah, in his amazing work, he says scholars of Islam have come to an agreement of prohibition of wind instruments, instruments of entertainment, musical instruments, stringed instruments, that there is an agreement of the scholars of Islam that this is haram. Now, Ibn Hajar al-Haythami, not to be confused with Ibn Hajar Asqalani, Ibn Hajar al-Haythami, the Shafi'i faqih, the one that we go back to know the last verdicts in the Shafi'i madhab, he also says that by the consensus of the ummah, this is haram, as you can see. Now, the greatest scholars of the Hanbali madhab, the famous scholar Ibn Qudama, Muwaffaquddin Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi al-Hanbali, the one who wrote Al-Mughni, in Al-Mughni, right there on your screen, he shows that there is an agreement of this ummah that this is haram. I'm not just saying I met a scholar and I met him and he won't mention his name. That I'm giving you scans for each one from all the madahib. This is from Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali. In his explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, he also says that by the consensus, ijma' of this ummah, listening to musical instruments is haram. By the ijma' of this ummah. Now, when we go to Al-Qurtubi, the great scholar of tafsir, he has Jami' al-Ahkam al-Quran, Al-Qurtubi. What does he say? He goes, with regards to flutes, stringed instruments, drums, there is no difference of scholarly opinion that it is haram to listen to them. These are scholars that are showing ijma of this ummah. Now, what about the four madahib from the ai themselves? In Ruh al-Ma'ani, Al-Ulusi, the great scholar of tafsir, he talks about Abu Hanifa, and he is a Hanafi scholar himself. He said Abu Hanifa forbids listening to musical instruments, all types of trombones, drums, even the striking of sticks to make a musical sound. Abu Hanifa prohibited it. So don't tell me the Hanafis are fine with it. Abu Hanifa wasn't fine with it, and his madhab is not fine with it. Right? Now, Ibn al-Qayyim, in fact, he goes on, he wrote a whole book on this issue. He says the madhab of Abu Hanifa is the strictest in regards to this, and he comments that they are amongst the harshest, and his companions clearly stated that it is haram to listen to all musical instruments such as the flute, the drum, the tapping of a stick. They stated that it is a sin, which implies that the person is a fasiq, is a sinner or open sinner whose testimony should be rejected. And they went further than that, and they said that listening to music is fisq, is sinful, and enjoying it is kufr. This is a Hanafi madhab. I'm not saying that I take this opinion, but just to let you know that this is how strict the Hanafi madhab was on this issue that you're making light of today. Imam Shafi'i, in his own Al-Umm, which his students collected, what does he say? He says, music's haram. Imam Shafi'i. If you look at the Maliki opinion, as Ibn Abdul Barr has mentioned already, and the Hanbali opinion, which has been mentioned, as Ibn Jawzi, he mentioned that Imam Ahmad considered all music to be haram, except whatever there is an exception for, and we'll discuss that inshallah. But here, to summarize, I want to bring to you the work of Shaykh al-Islam Taqiyuddin Ibn Taymiyyah, Abu al-Abbas, one of the great scholars, well known as Shaykh al-Islam, in his Majmu' al-Fatawa. What does he say? He says the madahib al-arba, all four of the madahib, they agree that music is haram. All four of the madahib. Right? So, from the contemporary scholars like Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Baz, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, Sheikh Albani, so on, they will also find these clear verdicts that music's haram. Some people might say, well, there is a scholar that took another opinion. Ibn Hazm took another opinion, or this scholar took another opinion. And that may be. Just because a scholar held an opinion doesn't mean that it's okay for you to follow it. There is a beautiful statement from one of the great four ai', Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He said, if you took from the concession of every scholar or from the mistake of every scholar, you would gather together every source of evil. And I have this statement on your screen. What does that mean? We don't just say, oh, a particular scholar said it's okay, so it must be okay. No, we look at the evidences. The Quran clearly, as the Sahaba have explained, show music is haram. Sahih ahadith in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari that have been checked by Ibn Hajar and others clearly show music is haram. Many of the Sahaba have clear statements, as Ibn al-Qayyim has mentioned, that music, it grows hypocrisy in the heart. Having known all this, you can't just say, well, there is ikhtilaf on the issue. There is such a great scholarly consensus on this that you could even make an argument for ijma'. Now, I'm going to mention a couple of things where people make a kind of shubha, a doubt, to try to get away from this. They say, well, there is a hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting and little girls were playing the daf and he allowed it, so that means music's halal. No. We always have an am, a general rule, and a khas, a particular exception. For example, dhuhr is prayed 4. But if you're traveling, you pray it 2. But that's an exception to the rule for traveling, not for all times. You can't be sitting at home praying 2, saying, well, there's a hadith of Rasulullah prayed 2. Well, you have to look at the situation. This hadith, as reported in Al-Bukhari, from Aisha radiyallahu anha, mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and he sat down, and there were little girls that were playing the daf, talking about one of the battles of Islam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned his head. Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu, he got upset. What did he say? He said the instruments of shaitan in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Notice the first thing, the Sahaba understood musical instruments are instruments of shaitan. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he turned to him, he said, let them be, it's the day of Eid. He didn't say, no, they're not the instruments of shaitan. He didn't say they're halal. He didn't, no, he just said, for this day, for these girls, let them play. So what does that mean? That the general rule is that these are instruments of shaitan that are haram. The exception to that rule is for the day of Eid, or as another hadith will mention about weddings and things, for girls to play the duff, only the duff, not guitars and all that, would be permissible. That's an exception. That is their hadith, and we accept that, as Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said as well. And this is supported by the hadith that Ibn Majah and At-Tirmidhi have mentioned from a reliable chain, where he says the difference between halal and haram, meaning talking about the weddings, is the one that is with the duff and sound, meaning that if you play the duff with the sound to announce the wedding, this is halal for that situation, not for all situations. So understanding this, when we look at from the earliest scholars, from the Sahaba and Tabi'un onwards, musical instruments in general are haram, no doubt to that. Now, are there exceptions to the rule? Yes. At times like Eid or weddings, if little girls sit and play the duff for a little enjoyment, there is nothing wrong with that. But you can't translate that to mean that you're going to go throw on Metallica and throw on NWA and throw on these things and just listen to them and call it halal. No, you don't play with the religion. Now, there is another doubt people put forward. They say, well, music's everywhere. What do we got to do? Put corks in our ears when we're walking through a mall? No, there's a difference between hearing something that you don't intend to hear and something that you attentively go and listen to, right? Meaning that if you're going to go for a job interview and you're sitting in the lobby and there's music playing, you didn't go for that intention. And if you have no power to turn it off, then you are not held responsible for that which is out of your control. That's just something in the passing. And it being everywhere doesn't make it halal. Gossiping is everywhere. Lying is everywhere. Women dressed inappropriately is everywhere. Any mall you go to go buy clothes, or any shopping center you go to buy milk, you're going to have women that are not dressed appropriately and men that are not dressed appropriately. Does that mean that it's halal? No. You don't make that excuse. You do your best. If you go somewhere and there's a poster of a woman or a man not dressed appropriately and you happen to see it because you walk in the store, that's not a sin on you. You look away. But that's different from you going and searching up a website and watching videos or something. Don't equate the two. The same with music. You go to a mall and there's music playing in the background. You go shop, do what you got to do, get out. That's not your sin. But if you go and you go to Spotify or whatever, Apple Music or YouTube Music, and you start listening to songs, that's different. Now, the next shubha that I will deal with. A lot of people do listen to music. That is true. And that doesn't make you kafir. Like, we're not saying that this is an issue of kufr. But don't call it halal. If you have a personal weakness, sometimes maybe you're feeling down and you throw some blues on or, whatever. That's between you and Allah. People sin, they make mistakes. Make tawbah to Allah. Hopefully the between salawat and the good deeds that you do will erase these bad deeds. But don't halalify it. Don't try to change the deen of Allah. Don't try to take away from the Quran. Don't weaken ahadith in al-Bukhari. This is important. We all have sins and mistakes. But to justify haram and call it halal, that's a line you shouldn't cross. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. So, regarding addiction, many times when we talk about addiction, we think about drugs, we think about alcohol, and many of these things we obviously know have a very bad impact on the human being, right? For example, if we were to say drugs are haram because it's an addiction, we have nusus, meaning we have from the Quran and ahadith about tahrim of khamar, meaning how alcohol is haram. So how do we derive, for example, meth or heroin or PCP or ice or whatever other, lean or drugs that are out there, how do we derive that those are haram as well? Meaning, we don't have an ayah of Quran or a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ that says heroin is haram. But we do have a hadith that tell us that which intoxicates, muskaran, is khamar. And all types of intoxicants, every khamar is haram. So we say, okay, based on the fact that it intoxicates and affects your mind, we say meth and weed and
you know, whatever else you want to get into, different types of LSD and shrooms, all of them are haram. But when we talk about that, it's very simple and it's very clear. And in the earlier part of this ummah, it was very evident that things like music were an addiction and they had a harmful impact on the ummah and upon the psychology of human beings. And based on evidences, it was well known to be haram. In fact, many scholars have authored works claiming there to be ijma', to be consensus of the Muslim ummah. And many ulama, like An-Nawawi and Ibn Qudama and others, Ibn Hazm, later on, when they talked about these issues, they debated the point of ijma'. Yani they went back and forth whether there was ijma' or not. But just the fact that ijma' was claimed on it shows how widespread this concept of music being haram was in the ummah. But later on, some of the ulama, they had some disagreements on the issue. And recently we're seeing a lot of our du'at and scholars and teachers try to open up this door of saying music is not haram. And from that, a lot of harm is coming into the Muslim ummah. So we want to address the issue. So I'm going to address it, and this is again not a challenge, but an invitation to any one of those scholars or students of knowledge or du'at that claim that this is not haram to have a private conversation with me. I'm available for it. We can sit down. I have all the books that I'm going to reference. I'm going to show you the actual screenshots of the books, but I'm willing to sit down with them, with the books, to show them as well. So the first thing we need to understand is the Islamic aspect. I'm not going to get into the psychology of it first, because we don't make something haram or halal because a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a clinical trial or the American Society of pediatrics or association of psychologists come up with a ruling. No, we based on Quran and Hadith. So is there any reference in the Quran itself to music being haram? In Surah Luqman, we have Lahul Hadith, right? Can you bring up the first slide? So this is a book called Mawsu' Tafsir al-Ma'thur. One before this one. So, which is, and I'm scanning each book for your benefit, so that it's not just me telling you. You can go back and you can, previous. Yeah, just that one. So this is the book. This is called Mawsu' Tafsir al-Ma'thur. What is this? A scholarly committee has gone through the books that make tafsir of the Quran based on actual evidences, not just opinions, but on actual hadith, whether it's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ or of the Sahaba or the Tabi'un, athar. When you have an athar in tafsir, they brought it together. So under the tafsir of Surah Luqman, Lawal Hadith, next, you will find that they have brought the narration here, and the ones from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Ikramah from Ibn Abbas and Sa'id ibn Jubair are right there, where it mentions the Lahu al-Hadith wal-Ghina. That what is the meaning of Lahu al-Hadith in the Quran itself? That which is useless talk, or that which is talk that takes you away from the remembrance of Allah. What does that mean? So when we say the Quran has a ruling, we have to look at what do the words of the Quran mean. We don't give our own understanding. Like Lahu al-Hadith to me could also mean just sitting around and doing gupshup about cricket or soccer or whatever, right? But we don't make tafsir of the Quran from ourselves. We go back to the evidences. So what is mentioned here from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, from Abdullah ibn Abbas, from Ikramah, from Sa'id ibn Jubair. Now the Sahaba are in a burgundy color, the Tabi'un are in a green color. They say that this means music. Next. Now in the same book, you will see here multiple ahadith from them. And I'm clarifying this because some people who don't know much about the science of hadith will come and say, oh, there is a drunk in the chain, like Nouman Ali Khan did. And I reached out to him, and our brother Eddie was in the same group, and we tried to explain, and he went away without wanting to discuss. So I'm going to reference this openly. I waited 1 year to give him private nasiha on this. Show me where is the drunk in the chain. This is from Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, which mentions, in due Abdullah ibn Abbas is, he is the Sahabi that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, oh Allah, give him the understanding of wahi. In tafsir, from the most relied upon Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Abbas, the cousin of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the great Sahabi, what does he say about this ayah? Wal ghina, that this is music and the likes of it. Also from Hasan al-Basri, the Tabi'i, Ata al-Khurasani, the Tabi'i, and others, Muqatil and others, all of those narrations are right there. Can we keep going? Now, continuing on, from Abdullah ibn Abbas, it is not through a single chain. I want to emphasize this. Not only one chain that there may be a weak narrator in that chain. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 chains independently from Abdullah ibn Abbas, from his student Mujahid, also Sa'id ibn Jubair, also Atiyah, also Ibn Salih, so on. You see those chains? Those are independent chains, all going back through Abdullah ibn Abbas, that repeatedly through his different students, he made tafsir of this ayah saying that it means music. So when somebody says, where in the Quran is music made haram? Right there. And not from me and my opinion, and not from my teacher's opinion, and not Ibn Kathir's opinion, and not Tabari's opinion, but rather the Sahabi Abdullah ibn Abbas, through multiple chains. And as I offered our brother Nouman, may Allah protect him and guide him and protect us and guide us, before he left the group chat, he did ask Eddie, ask Sheikh Kareem. Eddie from Deen Show was in the group chat as well. He brought Fuqaha and Muhaddithin. They all left. They didn't want to answer this. And again, I'm offering to sit with them privately and show him that repeatedly from multiple chains, Abdullah ibn Abbas says that the Quran says music is haram. Let's keep going. Here, from Ubayd ibn Umair, from Hasan al-Basri, Sa'id ibn Jubair, Ata, different sanad from Ata, saying the same thing. Why am I bringing all these narrations? To show you it's not just one person's opinion. It's not just Abdullah ibn Abbas or Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, which would be enough. But the great tabi'un like Hasan al-Basri and Sa'id ibn Jubair and Ata and others also narrated the same opinion, that the Quran in Surah Luqman, al-Hadith, makes haram music. Music's haram in the Quran. Is that our opinion? This is tafsir of the Sahaba and the Tabi'un from the Quran itself. Let's keep going. This is a book called Talkhis al-Habir of Ibn Hajar Asqalani. If you know Ilm al-Rijal, and if you know the checking of hadith, one of the most famous works on the checking of hadith. Because our brother Nouman made a statement that the hadith about this are weak. We're still waiting to see where that weakness is. Again, I reached out to him privately. We were in a chat group as well, and never was this presented where the weakness is. But rather, Ibn Hajar Asqalani, one of the greatest scholars, the Sharih, the one who made the Sharh of al-Bukhari, called Fath al-Bari, the one who wrote Nukhbat al-Fikr, he has Talkhis. What does he say? And I've scanned it just so you can have the book. And I sent all these to the brother as well. He mentions the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that the ayah in the Quran, he says, Wallahi, this is about music. What does he say? What does he say? He said, Wallahi, Ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud took qasam. He said, Wallahi, this ayah is about, Wallahi, huwa, wallah, al-ghina. It's about music. And what does it say? Ibn Hajar says, Ibn Abi Shaybah has this, Bisnad, what does it say? Sahih. And he mentions that Al-Hakim and Al-Bayhaqi authenticated as well as Sahih. So, to our du'at who are trying to sell out our religion by trying to water down to please people and make haram halal, wallahi, go look at it. You think Ibn Hajar Asqalani didn't understand the sanad? You think there was a drunk in the sanad, Ibn Hajar wouldn't catch it? Al-Bayhaqi and Al-Hakim, they wouldn't catch? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Sahih, authentically says, Wallah, music is haram in the Quran. Keep going. When we discuss a subject, we kill it. Next. There you go. And this is again from Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma as well with the sanad. And I've given the chain. And it mentions the same thing. And he says, this was reported from Abdullah ibn Abbas, not just through one chain, but from Mujahid, from Ikramah, from Ibrahim al-Nakhai and others, that Ibn Abbas also considered that ayah to mean music is haram. Now, from the greatest mufassirun, from the Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Both of them, they said this ayah means music is haram. This is Mustadrak ala Sahihain, the book of Al-Hakim, where he put together what he considered to be Sahih Ahadith. Keep going. Here is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And what I did is not only did I mention the hadith, what does he say? Al-Hakim, he says, هذا حديث صحيح. This hadith is sahih. Even though it was not in Bukhari and Muslim, but he says it meets their criteria. And he mentions Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And each narrator, I looked them up in the kutub of Rijal, in the books of narrators, where they do jarh wa ta'dil, because the brother made an anonymous kind of a statement saying there is a drunk in the chain. I don't know which chain, and I don't know which drunk. But here, I took the entire chain and looked up each rawi. And I put a number 1 with the first, Muhammad ibn Yaqub. What did the ulama of hadith said? That he's an imam of the muhaddithin, the musnad of his time, of his asr, al-hafid, the memorizer, the faqih, a shafi'i scholar. The next person in the chain, Qutayba, he is al-qadi. He says, what did the ulama say? I've written it out, handwritten it on top. Al-qadi al-kabir, the great judge and scholar, allama, major scholar, muhaddith, faqih, hanafi scholar. And you will see they're also from different madahib. It's not a madhab issue. Number 3, you see there, he said about, Abu Hatim said about him, Salih, he was a pious man. Muhammad ibn Sa'd, he was fiqh, Salih, strong narrator of hadith, a qadi. Number 4, Ibn Abi Hatim said about Yahya ibn Ma'in, he's fiqh, laysa bihi bas, there is no defect in him in his narration. Number 5, Imam, Muhaddith, fiqh. Number 6, Imam, al-Hafid, al-Buqri, al-Mufassir, the Shaheed who died fighting fi sabilillah. The next, he's the Tabi, fiqh, well-known, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Each person, I looked them up in the books of Ilm al-Rijal. Where is the drunk? Where is the weak narrator? No, you can't just throw stuff out like that. And if you do, bring your evidence. We have our evidence here. These are authentic narrations. Just because you have a platform doesn't mean you can say whatever you like. You have to bring evidence, hujjah. And I don't want to have to call the brother out publicly. Like I said, I reached out to him. We made a WhatsApp group. We tried to discuss everything. Because he didn't address it and left, I have to address it now. Keep going. This is the tafsir of Quran. That's a very early tafsir of Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi, not Fakhruddin Razi, Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi, the great scholar of Jarh wa Ta'dil and great scholar of Hadith. As you can see, he died in 240 something Hijri, so he's a very early scholar of Hadith, and his entire tafsir is sanadan. He gives the entire chain. You see here, he has the narrations from Mujahid, from Abdullah ibn Abbas, from those scholars, and you can see in the hashia and the checking that the sanad is sahih for all of those. Those are authentic narrations from Abdullah ibn Abbas, from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, from Mujahid, from Ata, from the earlier scholars, all showing that the Quran tells us music is haram. Keep going. This is the Fath al-Bari, the sharh, the explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari. Because there is a hadith in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, and it has the sanad in it. It's not mu'allakan in the sense of not having the sanad. And it explains that the time will come where people will make haram halal, like wearing the silk for men and alcohol and music. And wallahi, these brothers have made that sign of the Day of Judgment come true in front of us. They have made music halal. When the hadith combines music with khamar. Look at that, right? But some of the people, they tried to go around and say the hadith is weak, even though it's in al-Bukhari. Even if it's mu'allaq in a sense, it's not mu'allaq in the sense of not having the sanad. But is the hadith sahih? What does Ibn Hajar say in Fath al-Bari? He says about the hadith that no doubt it is sahih due to the shawahid, and it is sahih, يكون الحديث صحيحا على شرط البخاري. It is sahih according to the conditions, the strict, stringent conditions of al-Bukhari. So not only does the Quran tell us music is haram, but the hadith clearly shows that music is haram. Let's keep going. This is the mawsu' of Shaykh Albani for the checking of ahadith. And what does he mention about these narrations as well? I wanted to show classic scholars first, but also contemporary scholars, when they talked about the hadith, about a time when my nation will come, where they will make halal, hariri, and silk, and khamar, and alcohol, and the music. What does Shaykh Albani say about the hadith? It is sahih. Now, we have shown from the Quran itself, from the tafsir of the Quran, from the greatest of the Sahaba, authentically, from the Prophet ﷺ, without a doubt. What about the madahib? Our brother Nouman Ali Khan said that some of the madahib said that it's halal, music's halal. Which madhab? Which mu'tamid book? You can't just throw stuff out there. I met a Hanafi Qadi. Who's the Qadi? Name him. And a Hanafi holding a view doesn't mean that's the view of the madhab. A Shafi'i or a Maliki or a Hanbali or a Dhahiri holding a view doesn't make it the mu'tamad or the muftahbi or the what is the fatwa given upon in the madhab. Rather, if you look in the majmu'ah of Shaykh al-Islam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, what does he say? He says, فالمذاهب الأئمة الأربعة, in the madahib of all four of the Imma, music is haram. All four madahib. In fact, we can go to the Hashia ibn Abidin, or you can go to Al-Mughni, or all of those books of each madhab, or if you go to Al-Insaf for the Mu'tamid, for the Hanabila, or the Hashia of the Suqi and the Malikiya and so on. In their Mu'tamid books, you also find this. But I just wanted to give one reference to show that all four of the madahib considered music to be haram. So you have the Quran, you have Sahih Ahadith, you have the A'imma al-Arba'a. Shaykh Ibn Uthman in Zad al-Mustaqni'a. I went from classic to now contemporary scholars. What does he say? That the hadith, la shak fi sihatihi. What does he say regarding the hadith? That there is no doubt to its authenticity. So Shaykh Albani, Shaykh Ibn Uthman, Ibn Hajar Asqalani, Al-Hakim, Al-Bayhaqi, all of them didn't catch a drunk in the Sanad. Where is the drunk? Name him. I think that's it. So brothers and sisters, the first thing about music is we base on evidences. Past that, if you look at many of the clinical studies that have been done, and I can send them out, inshallah, if you want to review them, they prove that music has an effect on the human body. In fact, if you look at some of the studies that have been done, and I'm going to read one out to you, and these are peer-reviewed clinical tests and studies by non-Muslims. They say research shows that music induces harmful effects, particularly when it comes to depression. When a person dwells on negative thinkings or feelings, it can contribute to the development of depression and anxiety and worsen existing conditions. This is especially concerning for teenagers, as music can be a powerful tool for self-expression and emotion, and at the same time drive somebody towards depression. Why? Clinical trial that's mentioned by the CDC, it says music has certain tempos that affect the subconscious of the human. In fact, tests have been done on rats and others where different beats were played and aggression was observed in those animals. Meaning certain tempos and beats can make even animals aggressive. So it tells you that subconsciously music affects you. Whether it is to put you closer to a feeling of indulging in sins like zina, or if it puts you in a hyped up aggression like a mosh pit or certain rap songs and so on. And I can tell you from experience, back in the old days, when you wanted to do something violent and you wanted to hype yourself up, you would throw on a gangster rap song and it would hype you up. Or if you've ever seen hardcore metalheads in a mosh pit, very gentle people, when you get that heavy metal music going, to start pushing people you wouldn't expect. So that means your mind is being altered, your state of mind is being messed on by music. And this is something that's been documented. This is not something that we are just coming up with. You can find the clinical trials that have been peer-reviewed and published in scientific journals. Now, I want to address some of the excuses put forth by those that want to listen to music. Look, if you want to listen to music, it's between you and Allah. People sin. It's between you and Allah. Ask Allah to forgive you. What you shouldn't do is try to make haram halal. If somebody has a problem smoking, halas, that's between you and Allah. May Allah make it, you give it up. But don't say smoking is halal. If you have a problem with backbiting, it's haram. But ask Allah forgiveness. Try to get away from it. Don't start saying it's halal. Same with music. If you have a problem, you like to listen to music, that's your issue, it's okay. People have sins. I understand, you understand. Ask Allah for forgiveness, work on changing your environment, but don't go to justify it. This is a big problem. Because to sin is one thing, but to justify your sin is much worse. Secondly, we hear this excuse that music is everywhere. When you get in an elevator, there's music. When you go to the mall, there's music. When you're sitting in a university at times, there's music. That's true. Does that make it halal? No. There are inappropriately dressed people everywhere. You go to the mall, every billboard. You go to a hospital, there's billboards. Nurses, doctors that are not dressed appropriately. That doesn't mean that we say it's halal. Lying is everywhere. People lie everywhere nowadays. Does that mean it's okay? No. If you walk into an elevator and there's music playing, but your intention wasn't that, then you will get according to your intention. There is a difference between hearing music and listening to music. If you did not intend to look at somebody dressed inappropriately, but you were applying for a job and the website had pictures, that's not a sin on you. As long as you don't sit there and stare at it. Right? You walk into a school and the teacher's not dressed appropriately, khalas, I mean, that's not your sin. But that doesn't mean that you say pornography is halal because it's everywhere. No. Just like that, if you walk into a mall to buy some boxer shorts or whatever, and there's music playing, khalas. But that's not the same as you getting in your car and turning your, whatever your iPlayer and your Apple Music and throwing a song on. Don't equate the two. They're not the same. If something is prevalent, does not make it halal. LGBTXYQZ is prevalent, doesn't mean it is halal. And if you have those feelings, it's okay. You may have feelings. Fight the fight, but don't justify it. Just like that, when we have clear evidence from the Quran and Sahih Ahadith from Al-Mustafa alayhi salatu salam, and from the Sahaba, and from the A'imma al-Arba'a, and the vast majority of the Muslim scholars, to the level that entire books were written saying that there is ijma', whether there is ijma' or not is not the point even. The point there is that it was so widely understood in the ummah. When you have that, then we don't justify for our desires. May Allah protect us. The last I will mention is some of the brothers who tried to take evidences, for example, the hadith of the girls that were playing the duff in front of the Prophet ﷺ. And we don't reject a hadith, we accept them if they're authentic. First and foremost, about the hadith. Abu Bakr radiyan anhu, when he saw the little girls playing the daf, what is the first thing he said? Instruments of shaitan in front of the Prophet. He got upset. What does that mean? That generally the Sahaba understood music to be haram. If music was halal, why would Abu Bakr radiyan say they're the instruments of shaitan? Think. Secondly, the Prophet ﷺ gave an istithna, or he gave an exception. He said, leave them, for today is the day of Eid. So that would mean that the general rule is music is haram. Every instrument, guitar, sitar, flute, all of it. That's the that's the general. What's the exception to the rule? At times of celebration like Eid, for little girls to be happy and play a particular instrument called the daf, not the drums, the daf, one particular type. So that is an exception. The exception does not become the rule. For example, if you are starving, you're in a desert, you're gonna die, and you see a pig, can you eat it? Yes, if you're dying, out of darura, necessity. That is the exception. Does that mean that I go to my morning buffet and be like, pork? Well, if I was dying, I could eat it, so, No, that doesn't make the am. That is the khas, particular case. So in certain situations, certain instruments like the daf, for girls to enjoy, little girls, little kids, no problem. If the hadith is there, we accept it. But how do you go from that to grown men with guitars and saying, no, that's halal? No. Don't play with the deen. Don't play with the deen. So inshallah, I hope that this will clarify, first from the Quran itself, and the authentic tafsir of the Sahaba radiyan anhum, and the Prophet ﷺ, from the classic scholars authenticating it, from Al-Bukhari and Ibn Hajar, all the way down to the contemporary scholars like Shaykh Ibn Uthman and Shaykh Albani and others, and clearly from the Imma al-Arba, from the Madahib, and from scientific research as well, that music is haram. If you have this addiction, like any other addiction, fight it. We don't say you become kafir, no. But understand that this is something that will take you away from the dhikr of Allah. When you're listening to music, you're not listening to Quran, you're not listening to lectures, you're not listening to things that benefit you. So it is taking you away from the dhikr of Allah. And you know, the last thing I'll say, you know in your heart that it weakens your iman. Make all the excuses you want, but you know that if you left music and listened to the Quran and hadith and lectures and da'wah and so on, your iman increases. And when you start throwing some Ice Cube on, or some, was it Lamar, Derek Lamar, whatever, right? Yeah? You throw some of those things on, it's going to distract you. Taylor Swift is going to weaken your iman. I don't care if we're in Nashville. Yeah? You know it. Don't try to play with your iman. I don't care if we're in America or where we are or what century we're in. The Sharia does not change the Quran and the Sunnah upon the way of the Salaf al-Ummah. So Jazakumullahu khairan.
Do you have questions that need answering?
Alhamdulillah, great opportunity for you to get your questions answered. A lot of people send us questions on One Message Foundation and it overwhelms us, so we started this channel just for you. Get your answers here, inshallah, by sending an email to shaykhouthmanqa@gmail.com. So all one word, Shaykh Uthman QA, no spaces, no dots, no hyphens, nothing like that, @gmail.com.